packaging, and my company is guilty of nearly a 13,000 tons carbon footprint. It's hard for me to swallow saying that, but I want to be as open and transparent, because there isn't much transparency at all in industry, of what carbon footprint we're actually creating as organizations. I feel like I've been to some kind of rehabilitation clinic, actually, just saying that. It's a big, not weight off my shoulders, but you can see my mouth drying up just saying it, 13,000 tons, ridiculous. How many people in this audience of 100 plus know their organization's carbon footprint? Can I have raise of hands? 1, 2, and there are 100 plus organizations in this room. I hope that if there's only one message that comes across as part of my presentation is, please find out. If I were walking across this stage, throwing out 13,000 tons of junk, rubbish, if I was just fly tipping 13,000 tons a year, you would all be literally wanting to get a fight with me or throw things back at me. It would be absolutely frowned upon in society to do such a thing. The thing is with carbon footprint, we can't see it. And as humans, things we can't see, we don't even think about. And this is just to put light to this subject. I'm well aware that my business or organization could be deemed as, crikey, that's a earth-shattering amount of carbon footprint. But the reality is, in our industry of print and packaging, of which many of you here are also involved in, we're told that we're in the top quartile of green credentials within the industry. So we're a good one. And that's something that I just want to ring home from this. So moving on to my next slide, here's what a print and packaging manufacturer looks like with nearly a 13,000 ton carbon footprint. You know, we're a 17 million revenue business, or were at the time of this carbon footprint certification in 2020. We're a sheet plant doing, corrugated and solid board. We're shipping about 100 plus pallets a day, and that's goods in 100 odd pallets and goods out 100 odd pallets. And the reason for just giving this an explanation of our business is so that hopefully you, as my audience, can relate your business to some of this data and think, actually, my organization does about 10 pallets per day, or my organization does 200 pallets a day. Maybe that's a good metric for you to think, actually, if you're doing double the amount, you might well be double the footprint that I've got here. It's a really difficult thing to swallow, and we all need to shed light on this. 2020 is when this benchmark was done, with little effort made by organization at that point in time. But as you can imagine, 2021, we really want to do something about this. So a little bit about my company, Little Packaging. So our mission is to eradicate single-use plastics from e-commerce. We exist purely in the e-commerce space. And we're pigeonholed, or most known for our little envelope supplied to Amazon, our little book wrap invention, and there's a brief kind of understanding of the typical kinds of machinery we use in-house here. But we're, of the 211 global signatories of the Climate Pledge, we're number 80 odd, and it's a pledge together as a commitment to achieve net zero 10 years ahead of the Paris Climate Agreement in 2050, so a target to be net zero by 2040, and this is about our path towards that. So here's a logo dump, let's call it, of the 211 businesses that have accepted the challenge. In some way, I imagine almost everyone in this audience is connected to one of these brands. The reason why it's important just to put weight on this means these brands care about their overall footprint across scope 1 and 2, but scope 3 most importantly. And for those of you who are unaware, scope 3 is your supply chain, which is often the vast majority of any organization's carbon footprint. So I'll come on to that in a moment. So here's our certification. we used Carbon Quota. They specialize particularly in the print and packaging industry. A bunch of scientists, heavy data analysts, so we had to provide them with a spreadsheet of our entire 2020 purchases, and it was about a 5-month continual program scrutinizing almost every line of a spreadsheet, which was some 20,000 rows long. So you can imagine it's quite intensive, but for less than £10,000 we were able to find out this, and it was a big eye-opener. So just to explain scopes 1, 2 and 3. Scope 1 is your on-site combustion of gas and oil. Most people with their heating are on some kind of gas connection system. Scope 2, the purchase of electricity. And scope 3, pretty much anything else related to your organization existing. A heavy part of this being your upstream and downstream supply chain, so logistics coming from your suppliers upstream and then to your customers downstream. But the production of paperboard, in my case, is a big one, and I'll come on to that later. And then end of life of products was another big eye-opener. So I'll move on to this now. So we had a speaker before me, Head of Sustainability, James of Tesco, and he was talking about this carbon footprint. And quite rightly, he's speaking about actually supply chain trying to come up with more sustainable ideas and remedies. And this is because for most organizations, just like us, only 2.7% of our entire carbon footprint is our own energy on site. So that's 97% is our supply chain. It's staggering when you actually look at this in detail. So actually, our total impact of our site in Huntingdon, 355 tonnes. Electric being 188 tonnes, or 1.5%. Our small impact in 2020 was with the impact of COVID, actually going to electric vehicles as company cars and encouraging a lot of Zoom and Teams meetings, which I think was just a standard for every organisation. And you can see here in small print that we 2 years ago used to have 7.6 tonnes carbon footprint of company cars, and that's basically reduced 90%, so to a tenth. So 47% paperboard. That is by far and away the largest contributor to our total carbon footprint. And while we need innovation and ideas from our entire supply chain, particularly our paperboard suppliers, of how they can reduce their energy consumption, it's not an overnight solution. And there are things that we've been able to do that are overnight solutions, and it's just trying to work with these suppliers best we can. Glue, 1.3%. Pallets, 1.1%. Inks, 0.6%. And actually other purchases, 2.7%. So I'm well aware that some people in this audience actually do specialize in inks or glues. So I thought that was interesting for you guys to know that actually every little helps, pardon the phrase. Didn't mean that, actually, but self-promotion for you, James. Transport. So transport to Lille, this is our upstream transport from our suppliers to Lille in Huntingdon, 6%. A little bit more getting it from us to our clients. And we believe that is because generally our suppliers are delivering by the full truckload, whereas we have many clients who obviously have 4 pallets, 10 pallets, not a full truck. So this is another shattering thing for me, that 31% of our carbon footprint is end of life of paperboard. Now, I think, maybe magically, that there's some kind of recycling fairy out there that actually makes all paperboard all recycled into more paperboard. I'm certainly staggered that it's that high a percentage. And the reality is that paperboard, once it's laminated to plastic in particular, can't be recycled. But there are also limitations within curbside recycling of the volume that can be recycled. So while paperboard isn't toxic, if it gets into the environment, it's still staggering that we have that figure here. So just talking through remedies we've been making 2021, and this can apply to anyone in the print sector. easy ways of reducing scope 1 and 2 carbon footprint. So in the top right, the easiest section here, so we have just switching to 100% renewable electricity. So if your provider is E.ON, for example, you can choose green E.ON, simple switch over. It's a bit of a premium, but that's an easy win. Switching our company vehicles to electric on the right-hand side there, we've done that. We are installing solar 20% at a time in April of next year. Improving our building thermal efficiency is something that we tried in 2021, or 2020 rather, of a third of our roof that was asbestos and leaking, just gutting that and putting on modern insulated roof. And I'll show you that made a big difference actually. Air source heat pumps, ISO 14001, 9001, this is all in here. And standard things here says in the middle, warm the people, not the space. It might sound ridiculous, but actually it's a good reason to give everyone one of these bright green sweatshirts. Warm your staff, not the building, because actually the gas involved with heating your buildings can be immense. So here I show you, I just put the little logo next to this one about the gas usage. So in 2019, 1.03 million kilowatt hours of natural gas reduced by about 20%. And we can think the only reason is that new roof. We're not having to put as much energy into heating it. Much better U value. Is it U value? I believe so. And that was a surprise to learn, a delight to learn, but still much to come. So 3 remedies we're doing this year to ensure zero carbon. Ground air source heat pumps. One of our new buildings won't ever be connected to gas. And that comes to an investment cost of about £150,000 in doing so. I mentioned about the promotion of Zoom and Teams and switch to EVs, electric vehicles, and then going green on electric. So in the short term, switch to a green energy provider, and then an installation of solar. I have a mixed, not mixed opinion with solar. It's definitely the right thing to do, but actually committing to doing your whole entire roof in solar is a big capital outlay, and I think in the meantime the switch to green electric is the right thing to do so we can invest as and when we can afford. So it's a 10 to 15 year return on investment of going solar. I mean, with the rising cost of energy and gas, that's one good thing that accelerates or reduces the amount of years it takes to get return on investment on solar. But yeah, we anticipate it would be a total investment or minimum investment of £300,000 to do so. Not to mention, with this redevelopment of site of bringing down all the leaking asbestos roof, that actually it's cost us £800,000 to completely renovate that roof and put on the most modern U-value roofing on there with thermal insulation. So 3 remedies for our scope 3, because previously I've just been talking up to scope 1 and 2 to now. Here's an outline of our total purchases representing 53%. How to reduce it? In honesty, the only way to really actually try and reduce our scope 3 is talking to the likes of you guys, our suppliers, our clients, and trying to learn of innovations, tech that can reduce energy by 80%, as I've talked to one business already this morning. All these small differences make a big difference at the end. So networking and sharing ideas is so key to our path to net zero for the benefit of us all. So next I've got here a second remedy for scope 3, and this is the eye-watering bit about end of life I was mentioning. So it's probably quite small to see in the detail here bottom right, but this is information from DEFRA that of paperboard recycling in 2018, it was a figure of 75%, and that has fallen through COVID to 65%. Really disappointing, and I think eye-opening for a lot of people in this audience. And other than a unified effort to try and disrupt and lobby to encourage recycling and different ways of doing so. Third remedy, which I'm a big believer in, is mangroves. I don't know how many of you are familiar with mangroves, but actually, while we wait for technology and innovation to catch up, we're committing to planting 1.1 million mangroves in Madagascar. The cost of doing so is only 10 pence per tree, and actually, in 10 years' time, they will sequester enough carbon to cover our footprint of today. So it's quite amazing that actually, collectively as an industry, we could just say, let's plant 10% of our net profits worth of mangroves, do it now, and actually by 2030, that will probably offset our footprint of today and continue to do so. So not just for that year, they will continue to do 13,000 tonnes collectively year on year. So arguably, it's a great way of making that quick decision to make a difference by 2030. And blue carbon being, this is why mangroves are so important, they lock up carbon in the seabed with these huge root systems. Just to give you an idea here, on the far right we have mangroves showing in orange here, the roots that are between 0 and 30 centimetres depth in the soil. The green is what you see, the leaves, because it's like a laurel tree basically, or laurel bush. And then the deep root system that goes into the muddy seabed here, comparing to tropical forest root systems. And just as a brief outline here, mangroves sequester 2 to 4 times faster than generally rainforest trees, which in turn sequester 2 to 4 times greater than UK native trees. I'm a big fan of planting trees in the UK for biodiversity, but when you think of the earth requiring one gigantic lung system that are rainforests, actually from a global warming perspective, we just need to sequester carbon on the planet Earth, not necessarily in certain pockets that are in Huntingdon where we're based, but actually what will do the biggest impact here. So a summary of our remedies to ensure zero carbon footprint. I've mentioned about not being connected to gas, switching to air source heat pumps, the eradication of combustion vehicles, and the going of solar, and in the short term, just a quick switch to green electric. But then collaboration with suppliers on scope 3, lobbying with government about increasing cycling capacity, because I've mentioned just how big a chunk that is of our carbon footprint. And for us, we believe mangroves are the best choice to do to actually make a quick decision now that will really make a difference by 2030. Actually, it equivalates to £8.50 a tonne by that calculation. And furthermore, in the meantime, offsetting. Now, the offsetting market is booming at the moment. A huge amount of corporations, as a result of COP26 the last couple of weeks, making this decision to go carbon neutral or net zero carbon by just buying up a lot of offsets. And going rate today is about £7 per tonne, and you've got to keep doing that per year. But while I talk about carbon neutral, just for those that are unaware, carbon neutral is offsetting your scope 1 and 2. You know, I could do that for what, £2,000 probably investment. So scope 1 and 2, when I mentioned, is only 3% of our carbon footprint. That's why there's this term about greenwashing. You know, it's a great thing, a great step in the right direction, but when it's only representing 3% of your overall carbon footprint, it's only a small step. Net zero is basically saying that you'll progress and minimize your scope 1, 2, 3 by 2040, and by 2040, you'll offset the rest. We want to accelerate faster than that and say, actually, we want to be zero carbon yesterday. Not waiting to 2040, and that's hence the reason for offsetting. So by February of next year, the little brand shall be zero carbon scopes 1, 2, and 3. And we think that's a world's first, but the important message that we want to get across here is encouraging other businesses, other organizations, our own industry, print and packaging. Consider investing 10% of your profit towards fighting climate change. Generally, as business owners and business influencers, that isn't a huge proportion of profits to dedicate towards this. If we're alone in doing it, it doesn't really help. And on a day like today, it's Remembrance Day. What better way to be remembered as a day that we thought about making that difference to planting trees or offsetting? So that's the end of my presentation. If there are any questions, I'll take it from there.